Hold the air. I see the subject inside. It looks like he's got a gun in his hand and he's pointing at the clerk. Guys, I've got the south covered behind you. Watch the crossfire. Running southbound, Rob. He's coming right at you.
All units, Victor 3, Victor 5 are fighting with 1. Hold the air.
Victor 3, slow down. Subject in custody. Firearm recovered.
Copy that. Command clear. Subject is in custody for the robbery. Firearms recovered.
Hey, welcome back to Hold the Air podcast. Seated to my right, as always, is Rob Forbes.
My man.
Today's episode, we're really happy to have this opportunity to do this episode. We got a lot of things in the cooker. We're gonna come up with different ideas constantly to make sure that we're speaking to every branch in our large tree of our family in law enforcement. Today's theme is women in law enforcement.
Heck yeah.
And it's a very important thing to talk about because I have worked with some incredible women in law enforcement. I have learned a lot from women in law enforcement. I think it's one of those unique dynamics where a lot of times we think the profession is just geared towards men, but that's absolutely not the case. And we hope to be able to have a lot of comment and a lot of conversation with this guest currently that we have in our studio and guests to come.
You bet. And I think, for the audience that's catching on here, we're going to do a whole series relating to women in law enforcement. So it's going to be today's guest and plenty of others that are past and present.
Yes.
And that is going to make a dynamite whole series that I'm super pumped to look into, man.
Yeah. So the viewers don't know a whole lot about. Well, some viewers do, but not everyone. I come from a family of 9, 6 sisters.
Yeah, man.
So I am obligated to honor and respect women.
You bet. A quick question. How many sisters?
6.
Okay. How many bathrooms were in your house?
1.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a whole episode in itself right there.
No hot water.
No hot water ever. Yeah, man.
So in today's studio, we got Katie Booth.
Yeah, man.
She's 5 years at LPD. She was 1 year at MSU. She graduated from the Michigan State University with a degree in criminal justice and psychology. Welcome to the studio.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, man. So bring us, where we typically start is go back in your history, right? Go back in your memory banks to what started for you, getting you on the tracks, so to speak, that pointed you towards law enforcement.
So I had like a few different career ideas that I thought I wanted to do, but I feel like everybody does that. Like there was a stint where I thought I wanted to be like a mortician, which is super weird and strange. And I think I watched too much CSI, but and then I was like, no, I actually don't think I want to look at dead people all the time. So I'll pass on that. But I started out at CMU and it just wasn't really for me. Like I always knew that I wanted to end up at MSU. So I came to MSU. I got my first internship in probation. So I was helping with like the Veterans Corps and obviously a ton of MIPs and stuff like that in East Lansing. So I was helping with that, but it felt super after the fact. Like I wasn't getting what I was looking for out of it because everybody had already made their mistakes and I was there to kind of, it felt like boss them around or do whatever. So I was like, not really for me. And then I did a study abroad in Australia it was like government and law or something like that. And I met a girl who worked for the MSU Police Department as a cadet. And she's like, you might actually really like this. So I was a cadet there for a while, got a ton of experience in using the radio, using report writing systems, kind of getting to see officers like up close and personal, not just like on a ride-along setting. Like they would come up to the desk and we would interact with them. And so I started doing ride-alongs there. And then I actually had a policing class at MSU, and our current chief, Rob Backus, was my professor. So that class, I genuinely think had a huge impact in like what direction I was going to take, because he was telling me real life stories and I was like, oh my God, wait, you guys do that there? Like what? So he kind of walked everybody through like how it changed how he did his daily life. like as far as like how much distance you keep between a car to avoid like if you need to get out quick, like which is not something that anybody would ever think about unless there's a reason that you're preparing for the worst. So that class, and then my Aunt Ellen is a detective at LPD actually, so she kind of was always like, if you want to do it, you should do it, but also don't, because I love you and I don't want to see, like, and she has a ton of experience and she knows kind of what's up. But that, and I guess even before that, in my childhood, I dealt with a lot of, not necessarily police interactions on like my behalf, but with my parents and kind of like domestic violence issues, and seeing a lot of that and kind of like how law enforcement dealt with that, but also like behind the scenes, like when they leave, like what do we do now? Like the cops aren't here to protect us anymore. So to me, it was like I was never old enough to make a difference then or to protect anybody then. But the older that I got, the more kind of empowered I felt to, hey, I can actually, like I might be able to help somebody that was like me, or like, my family that I watched go through awful things that nobody should. And then I grew up and I was like, well, maybe I can do it. So I kind of just decided, like, it was like, I don't feel called to do anything else, but I do feel called to try to make a difference and to try to help if I can. And then I decided to go to the police academy. I was sponsored by MSU, so that was an awesome opportunity. I worked there for a year. I mean, a while. It felt like a while just because it wasn't for me. That wasn't the place for me. I wasn't feeling what I hoped to feel in terms of like being fulfilled and getting that feeling of like I'm helping. So then I, made the leap to Lansing, and that was scary because I'm like, well, what if this isn't what I thought? But I've been with LPD now for a little over 5 years, and I feel fulfilled. I feel a lot of things, but fulfilled is definitely one of them.
Yeah, that's so cool, because awesome, I don't think I found my calling or my draw to the work for the same reason. This idea that helping people out it seemed very, very intriguing, very enticing. And we had Quincy and we had Frank on here, and Quincy specifically said that he had a traumatic experience watching how a law enforcement scenario played out, and it wasn't a good scenario, and he felt obligated from that point to get into law enforcement. So I think if that component's missing, if you're getting into this profession with the idea that it's about authority and having power over people, I don't think that it lasts. I think it's one of those things where you fall out of love with it because you're not getting what you think you want out of it, either your way or the other way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a great point. And the best part about it is everybody is different. And that's been the theme of this podcast from the very jump, and will always be, right? Is what we're talking about here is, here's Katie Booth. Her on-ramp to this job is different than mine, which is different than yours, which is different from Detective Scroggins and my dad my dad was out in here and he said, I was a teenage kid sitting on my buddy's porch and watched the cops come in here, and basically what he said was crack heads and break up a riot. And I was like, that's for me.
Yeah.
And that to me is what makes this such a great platform, is there's somebody out there that is going to be dynamite at this job, but they're doubting themselves because of whatever reasons. Maybe I'm not, I don't have, the right game or whatever it is, but the next John Cosme is out there. They just don't see that in themselves yet. But by having a platform to say, I lived in a house that was loaded with domestic violence, and I didn't like what I saw, and I wanted to somehow give back to that. I can't relate to that on a one-on-one level, but somebody out there can, and that's the beauty of what we're trying to do here, man. And I just love you for that, man.
Yep.
So the on-ramp for you through your college experience, through your internship and everything. Now you are, you've landed at Lansing. Take us, because you're involved, and I love that about you, right? You're involved in a lot of things. Talk about your work with the Explorers and some of the other things that you're involved with at the department.
So I think Explorers was probably the first thing that I kind of like dipped my toes in. And current captain now reached out to me and basically was like, look, we're looking for a female, like a strong female to help with this, because similar to what I guess that this conversation is, it's like there's girls out there, but it's difficult, you know, if you don't have somebody that's like kind of showing you that you can do it. Mm-hmm. And he reached out to me and I was like, that's me? Like, you think that's me? Yeah. Which is like, it's a very like, it's an amazing thing. And it made me feel really good and it made me feel confident. Like, okay, wait, so what I am doing is like, I'm doing a good job. So I started that after I had about a year on. I recently had to step back from that just because of a shift in what I'm doing now. But that was a super great experience just because you're getting to meet kids when they're young, very impressionable. A lot of kids too are having issues at home. They don't have a support system, or they're in situations where it's like, well, what do I do? Like, kind of, what should I do? This seems like the right track. And it's like, we need good people with good life experience that want to help and that want to make a difference, not just people that want to come in and boss people around because you have a badge. Yep. That's never been my goal. That's never been anything. But like, if it's not me that's telling them that, you know, like, I know that there are other people that will do it, but like, that's why not me? Like, sure. Try to tell them like, yeah, you can do it. You got to work towards it. And so kind of like coaching them through that, and it becomes more personal too. Like, they'll reach out to you outside of that and kind of like seek advice or come to you with issues. And it's cool to watch them become leaders in something in their own capacity. So I really love that. Beyond Explorers, I am a member of our DT team, so like defensive tactics stuff. And to me, that was just really important because I recognize that I'm a 5'3" girl and I'm not always going to be the toughest. I'm not always going to be the fastest. I'm not always going to be the strongest. But if I can at least increase my time training, you know, broaden my skill sets, do things to better myself in any capacity, and then also to hopefully trickle that down to the new people or people that are having issues with confidence or having the same reservations, whether you're male or female. I feel like everybody has different issues and obstacles, but to me that was really important. And it was in the academy too. Like, I was like, I would always try to pick the boys and be like, you're going to wrestle me right now. Yep. And I'm going to beat you.
Yeah.
But like,
that's a real thing. Yeah. Katie, that's a real thing.
Yeah. And if I didn't, then I was like, okay, then what can I do better? Like, how can I be better? So that way I'm not only dependable for myself, but I'm dependable for my partners. Yep. So that was huge to me. Yeah. I'm still doing that. I think I've been on the team for maybe 3 years, 3.5. I am a negotiator for our tactical team. I've been doing that for a little bit over a year. And I recently got a special assignment in our violent crime team, so you guys know all about that. So that's been...
What is this violent crime team that you speak of? No, so pause right here, not to interrupt you. We'll come back to you in just a second here. But look, you and me have been around all kinds of blocks, man. Mm-hmm. And when we linked up and we were on the violent crime team together, it's called, we refer to it all the time as VCI, Violent Crime Impact Team. When we were in that unit together, and I know you're going to agree with this, that was the absolute most beneficial 3 years of my career, hands down, bar none. I had the most fun and I had the most impact, and it actually felt like what we did was just the pinnacle of what I wanted out of this job. And we were there very late in our careers. Yeah. You know,
it's one of those things. I strongly believe this. I think when you hire into a police department, you should always have the idea that you want to advance, right? Whether it's through promotion, whether it's through special assignments. But I strongly encourage young officers to find your way first, right? Right. I always say, let the streets humble you. You have to be a service cop. You have to take call after call after call after call, and you have to be gracious about it. You have to help your fellow workers out, and not complain and want it just your way. And then once you get to that point, you should start to look into special assignments. Violent crime, helping out with the cadets. There's something that just is re-energizing about that, because this profession.
Man.
Every day for 25 years,
Yeah.
for you, 25 years for me, 5 years, you've done it over 6 years. We never get dispatched to a call that's pleasant, or there's no issue, there's no problem. We're constantly problem solving. When you get on a special team, like we were fortunate enough to do, and the chemistry's right, and you've got years and years of experience. I mean, when you get a gun off the street, you've literally prevented something bad from happening. We're never going to stop it completely, but we're a part of a team that goes out there every day, and you just specialize in taking guns off the street and finding people, holding them accountable for nasty things. And, good for you for getting into the stuff that you've gotten into, and much success for you in your VCI endeavors. Your family, were they concerned when you got into law enforcement as a female?
Yeah, so I don't know that my dad was so much, just because he was always he pretty much raised me to be like a boy. Mm-hmm. Like, I rode dirt bikes, I played tackle football, I had no business doing that. But he's a smaller statured guy, so I feel like he always kind of instilled in me, you just have to be a bulldog. And I never really had any issue with that, in my opinion, just because I feel like I was just tough. But my mom, on the other hand, was like, oh, you're a delicate princess and I can't handle this. So I remember when I was a police cadet behind bulletproof glass, she's reading emotional support for law enforcement families. And I'm like, honey, this is nothing. Are you good?
Oh man, that's great. Hey, I think that's a lot of moms though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
sure.
My mom literally sat me down and prayed over me. She was like, oh, Juancito, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, man, but I just got this thing in me. I got to go do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So that was the dynamic getting into it. Were you ever concerned about the things that you knew you were going to see? Because, as police officers, we see the worst things that human beings do to each other. And then we see mistakes, right? Critical car accidents, obviously the shootings, the overdosing. There's a lot of trauma that we experience on a daily basis. Did you anticipate that? And if you did anticipate that, what do you do to keep your mental health when it comes to traumatic stuff?
So I don't think that I really anticipated how bad it can be. And I think that you see things that are unimaginable. Things that
For sure.
I don't understand how a human is capable of doing that to another person.
Honestly.
Or even just, mental health calls. It's I could not have prepared myself for the amount of mental health issues that we see and deal with, and how people just become, it's they're not even there at all. And it's just so that kind of stuff I don't think I was prepared for. And I don't know that you really ever could fully prepare yourself, just because hearing a story is a lot different than seeing it with your eyes, or smelling it, or feeling it, or being there. So there have been, we see stuff, and sometimes it doesn't hit me until after that I'm bothered by it.
Yep.
Because when you're in the moment, you kind of have to deal with what is in front of you, make it safe, make it good for everybody else, and then kind of carry on. Lansing is a very busy city, especially in the summertime. Sometimes I don't even have time to go to the bathroom.
Right.
I'm certainly not eating a meal sometimes,
Yeah.
and that's also me though. I have a very hard time taking a break, pausing, because it's the calls are there. I need to clear this board. I need to do what I have to do because people are waiting for me.
Right.
So for me, I think I give it a day or two, and if it's still bothering me, I've definitely gone to therapy. I talk to my coworkers about it. I think that we all have a pretty big habit of getting together and debriefing things. It's just difficult to talk about your feelings because it's taboo. And even now in 2024, it's hard to be I'm struggling, but like it's okay. And that's something that I've realized with time. And in the grand scheme of things, 5 years is not, it's a sliver. But I do recognize that if I don't empty my backpack at least every now and then, like it's going to drag me down.
That's a great way of saying it.
It's just like, it's
that is a great way of saying
a
it.
weighted blanket on my back, and it will pull me down if I don't take some stuff out of it every now and then. So I do my best to, like I talk about it with my husband. I talk about it with my friends. I have friends that are not law enforcement. So I give them like the G version of it. Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to understand the other one.
And
No,
I'm
they're
like,
not.
I'm sad, but I'm not going to really dump on you why. But like, I think therapy has been super helpful, in our peer support team at LPD, in my opinion, since when I started till now, is like dramatically better.
Yes.
And I think that there's just resources that maybe were not available or not utilized that now they are.
Yes.
So I don't know. I think we have good stuff at LPD.
There's always like a national response to a police fuck up, right? And that's a very easy thing for a lot of novice people and folks that have a so opinion about law enforcement to just beat you up. I know when Rob and I were still working there, that was the most unique experience I've ever felt in law enforcement. Like, aside from everything else we just talked about, the trauma and all the stuff that we see and the way we try to keep ourselves healthy, when politics gets involved in the media, and then we're the target. Listen, if we make a mistake, I'll be the first one to tell you, I want that person held accountable. Yeah. But man, was it difficult to navigate through that. What people were willing to do to test law enforcement was just beyond, like, it didn't make any sense.
Didn't.
The driving, everything, it just seemed like we were in a different world. So yeah, good for you for taking those steps, because like you said, I love that analogy, the backpack, because it will grab you if you don't clean it out every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you came to LPD, how quick did you realize how different it was? Because I almost went to MSU. I almost went to East Lansing, and I ended up here at Lansing. So I never knew like a different type of call load. How soon did you know that just the little border there between East Lansing and Lansing, how different it was?
Like immediately.
Yeah.
I started out on day shift and I was on nights at MSU, but it was just different because we would go out with 16 people, and it was like I was able to make 20 plus traffic stops a night in a 12-hour shift. And here I'm like, in my dreams.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, right. But I came here and I would get, I'm not exaggerating, probably 5 to 6 reports of like actual crimes that were happening a day. And I looked at my FTO's Boswell and I'm like, how? And he's like, you'll figure it out. Like it's time management. You have to do it in between calls. Like if you have a break, you'll figure it out. Sometimes you're going to get held over, but he helped me through it in a way of like, and I think too, having experience in like radio, like lean, report writing, all of that took a huge load off because I could not imagine starting here.
Yes, you could still recognize an MDOP. You can or damage to property report. You can still recognize what a domestic looks like. Like you don't take away from your experience somewhere else. You can still draw from that in that you're not starting at zero.
Yes.
But go ahead, because that's you did have a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Versus just straight out of the academy, not knowing anything really yet.
Yeah, and it's like big props to kids that are starting out with no prior experience and having to learn everything plus how busy Lansing can be. So I was like, wow, okay, this is a huge reality check, but like I love a challenge. So I will figure it out. I'm going to navigate it. And then from there I went to noon shift, which is just a different animal also. Like
car accidents for days.
Yeah, because it's like
everything.
Yeah, rush hour, everything. And then the people that don't sleep during the night because they're doing other things are waking at that hour, and I'm like, oh God. But like, it was definitely a learning curve. But I had super great FTOs. Like I couldn't have picked better ones, and like happy that I made the switch, but it was something that I was not. I had an idea because I was scanning Lansing calls on my CAD and on my radio, and I was sitting on the border, and I'm like, well, they need my help. Will they need my help? Ask me, please.
Yeah.
So, like, I knew, I remember seeing the board, and it's like stabbing, shooting, larceny, domestic, and I'm like, oh my God, they're just sitting, they're pending?
Yeah.
And, like, sometimes they're a late call or whatever, but, like, so I had an idea, but, like, being boots on the ground in the city is different.
Yeah,
so.
and put it in perspective, like, I think the city of Lansing's dynamite. I think the city is absolutely dynamite. Remember, what was the first, like, whoa moment you had at LPD where everything was going crazy, shit hit the fan?
It was this kid, he hadn't slept in days. His parents were like, what do we do? And there were 2 FTO cars that got sent, so there's automatically 4 of us there. I mean, I know we count as like a half at the time, but like there's 4 of us, and it took at least 3 more cars for us to get him under control. We fought with him, and I was like, oh my God, people are fighting us here? Like, what?
Yeah, it's different.
But it was just like I knew that kind of thing was going to happen, and I know that it's a part of the job, and it's nothing that like you ever wish to happen. But to me, it was like, oh, this is real. This is for real.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then like just drunk drivers that hit multiple cars, and they're going all around the city, and then you finally find them, and then they fight too, and it's a whole thing. Like, I feel like there's just so many things that you also like pack away, because as time goes on, you see worse and worse happens.
You are for real.
And so then I'm like, I forget about the things then that were a huge deal, because like there's been bigger now. And I feel like that will forever continue. But that's the importance of like taking it out. Like, let me toss that one out. I got to make room.
Yeah.
I've said this over and over and over. Like, officers today are presented with absolutely unparalleled expectations of what they're dealing with, right? From COVID, mass casualty violence, protests, and not even protests, flat out riots against the police, right? Like, we've all been a part of riots and protests and all that, but I've never been to one until 2020 where it was, we're not upset at a situation out in the world, we're upset with you.
Yeah.
And that knocked me on my face, man. I did not like, God, wait, you're mad at me. If you called because you were in need, we would come rushing to you right now, right? Like, it would just baffled me. And so I say that because shout out to you for coming here and saying, hey, look, it's important to unpack my backpack and to have things that maybe bother me. I gotta take that weight off, and so I can really, it's about properly serving the next, right? Because if you're constantly looking in your rearview mirror, it's really hard to focus on what's in front of you. What is in front of you could be the most impact you could ever have on a person's life. But if you're being weighted down so much by what you're already carrying from before, you can't really serve them properly, right? But the culture, when we grew up, man, the culture was, you suck it up, cupcake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And I think, look, there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance. There has to be availability to unpack your backpack, right? But it can't be, well, my cat's got a hangnail and I just can't cope. Right? Like this job takes some fortitude. Yeah. It does.
It takes
some fortitude.
You gotta
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you gotta have a dog in you.
You gotta have a damn dog in you.
It's either. That's how I grew up. Like, do you have that dog in you, like that surviving ability, or do you have that extra gear? Because, like you say, you can't be in the right mindset if your mindset's someplace else. If you're thinking about something that happened 2 or 3 days ago, and there's so many. That's a great point. There's so many opportunities to help someone, like in the most worst part of their life, and you didn't give them the service that they deserved because you're too proud to say, hey, I need to clear my head up from 3 days ago. I can remember, dude, the first time I went to day shift.
I don't even know what you're gonna talk about, but I'm already excited, bro.
Listen, it was
I'm already excited.
It was completely different. two situations that I like to use as an example. The pace was different. Like Katie, you made reference to going in the afternoon. So like if you don't know what law enforcement work is like, a department the size of Lansing, the day shift has a certain rhythm, the afternoon has a certain rhythm, and night has a certain rhythm. And each one of those shifts has different customers, right? Different types of crimes happen certain times, different times of the day. I remember I got my first foot chase day shift, and I chased this dude around Cadre, I don't know, twice, and then down Washington and made it all the way to Michigan before the first backup officer got there. And I'm literally laying on top of this guy. I could hardly breathe. And it seemed like they had a cup of coffee in their hand, but they didn't. And I was like, I'm all set here. I'm good. And I was like, whoa, that pace I was bringing from night shift is not the same for day shift. And then on the other side of it, like on the heavy side of it, I can remember an officer telling me, as I was walking in and he was walking out, hey, how was the shift? How'd it go? Well, I had 4 DOAs. 4 dead on arrivals. So every time you walk into a house, 4 times this officer walked into a house and stared at a dead body. 4 times this officer had to listen to the crying and the pain from different sets of circumstances. 4 times this officer had to smell what he smelled, and had to get intimate with trying to find their ID and their medications, and looking around the room and thinking, whoa, this person's life is gone, and family's out crying on the porch, and some people wanted to come in and just, and you couldn't let them. Some of these DOAs were absolutely terrible, right? Decomposed bodies. If you did that for 10 years on day shift, tell me how heavy that backpack is.
Man, you ain't lying.
Tell me how important it is to say, you know what? I need to sit down and talk to somebody. And you're right, dude. When we first hired on, that just wasn't a thing. Hey, folks, thanks for checking out this episode of Hold the Air podcast. Today's episode is brought to you in part by the Headroom Salon, located in beautiful Old Town, Lansing, Michigan, 1122 North Washington. If you're looking for an experienced stylist, friendly atmosphere, and a commitment to excellence, the Headroom Salon is the place for you.
Very, very early on in my career, the call comes over the radio. There's a guy on fire on Torrance Court. All right. And I could have walked to this call, but of course I, drove there, but I was right there. And, again, fast forward to the details, because it's, there's a whole on ramp to how this guy got caught on fire, but essentially he did it to himself in a heated domestic violence situation. Poured something on his body and
Lit himself
flicked his bick, and he lit his ass up. And when I pulled onto Torrance Court, it was like, you ever see like the stunt man in the movies or whatever?
Yeah.
They like light him up and he's a ball of fire. He's got a fire suit on and he's like, they're like, running around or whatever. That's what this dude looked like.
Oh my God.
And the neighbor, there was a neighbor that came out trying to help and threw a blanket on him to like extinguish the flames or whatever. So now and then they extinguish the flames, and this dude's down on the ground, and they take the blanket off, and like his skin is stuck to this blanket, right? And through all this process, now I'm there watching this unfold, right? And in the process of this, all his clothing burned off, and all of his skin, really I don't know, I'm not not a doctor or anything, but I know there's several different layers of your skin, and a lot of his layers had burned off.
Oh, I can imagine.
And his internal body heat was so hot that his skin, his arms and his torso and his legs split open. And in that moment, I swear to you, in that moment, everybody can relate to this. You ever overcook a hot dog on a grill? To this day, that's what it looked like, bro. I'm not bullshitting. That's what it looked like. It looked like you cooked this
Yeah.
And look, we're laughing at it because that's what cops do.
Yeah.
Like, how do we internalize it?
Yeah.
How do we unpack our backpack?
Yeah.
We laugh at a lot of graphic shit.
Right.
Right? But I still to this day, I'll eat a hot dog like nothing, right? Like I'll eat the shit out of a hot dog. But I'll still think of that dude.
Oh
to
my
this
God,
day,
yeah.
25 years later, I will think of that dude. And they try to sadly, they tried to life flight him to the burn unit at U of M, and he didn't make it. Like,
Yeah,
like
well,
he lost his life.
there's no
right?
way.
There's no way.
There's
no way. And
That doesn't go away, dude.
it does. But
doesn't go away.
But I say that to say this, to your point, to Katie Booth's point, right, about unpacking your backpack. There was no unpacking your backpack in that day. And I remember the sergeant looking at me going, what is taking you so long? Like, there's calls out there waiting. Like, get your ass out there and get, like, there's work to be done here. Like, your shift ain't over. Get your ass out there. What are you waiting for? Mm-hmm. That's how it was.
On to the next.
On to the next. To this day, I can, like, my kids eat if I went home right now and put hot dogs in the grill, my kids would eat them all. And I'd eat them too, right? But I can't cook them. And I don't know about you, but I like my hot dogs well done. I burn them intentionally. Like, I like them like that, right? But to your point,
Yeah.
to circle back
Oh,
to your
dude.
point.
How many?
Like, how, and here's the key. There was no one saying, hey, are you good? Or, boy, that sucked, or that was a lot. There was no conversation about it. It was on to the next, right? And I think that is super unhealthy.
Oh, it's what's wrong.
Super unhealthy.
There's things that we can improve on a daily basis in law enforcement, and that is absolutely one of them.
Yeah.
You know, you just have to be conscious of it. It's just no getting away from it. You hired on 5 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. I can say with confidence, when Rob and I hired on, I didn't experience an OIS with a friend involved or my own personal OIS for years, decades.
Yep.
You've been here 5 years, and I believe that Lansing's probably had 6 OISs or somewhere close to that.
Yeah.
You know, and then you were part of the MSU shooting, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you know.
Oh, she wasn't just part of it.
Yeah. So we talk about a traumatic experience. That has to be pretty high up there with probably one of the most traumatic you've had in a short year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So law enforcement definitely has changed. We definitely police more violence, and we see more graphic things. If you're comfortable talking about it, you want to talk about that experience at MSU? I mean, that's where you came from. Yeah. And now you're running code the opposite way.
Yeah.
Back to MSU,
Yeah.
right?
And I never really thought about it like that.
You explained how, oh God, I'm going to LPD and my lights are on and everything. And now 5 years later or 4 years later, whatever, 3 years, you're racing back. And this place is kind of, you know, has a special place in your heart. Explain that.
So I feel like I can't talk about that without talking about where we were before.
Okay.
Because to me, that was like...
It's a key ingredient.
Yeah.
It is.
So we got sent to a call for a lady that was like messing with the neighbors. I don't remember what exactly the nature of the call was, but I think it was either like a neighbor complaint or an assault, something like that. And we get there and this lady is like banging on the door, causing all kinds of issues. And it gets to the point where we're like, please leave. Like, we're just asking you to leave. Like, we really weren't trying to force it, but then she started fighting with us. And feel free to chime in if I'm not painting this correctly, but we fought with her for a minute, and she was a smaller lady, but she meant it. Yeah. She kicked one of us in the bits. Yeah. Wasn't me. My bits were not kicked, but then we get her up standing. We get her in ankle chains. She's cuffed, everything. She looks at me and hocks the biggest.
Oh, God.
She didn't, like, it's not like you, like, excitingly talk and a little spittle light comes out. Yeah. She straight up
Ghostbuster
listen.
But in a way where like I couldn't see it
so
coming.
foul.
Like it wasn't like I'm stupid for not stepping back. It was like she was thinking about it for a minute and then she just spit right in my face. Like dead center. It's dripping down my face, but like we've got to handle this because she's out of control. So we get her to the jail and we're writing the report and whatever. And I'm like cleansing my face with like antibacterial wipes.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God. And then I sit down to write my report and I hear a tone, and it was like, and it could just be like a psychological thing, but that was like a tone like I've never heard before.
Yeah.
And the tone of the dispatcher's voice. There's an active shooter at MSU at Berkey Hall. And to me, it was almost like I had like auditory exclusion for a second, because I was like, wait, like, and I know that we had the swatting call at the Okemos High School before that.
Yep.
And I mean, we get calls like that where people are saying things that aren't actually happening to do for whatever purpose. But I was like, okay, maybe I heard that wrong or whatever. But then I just remember grabbing my gun out of the lockbox and running to my patrol car and like just going. I had my radio. I always, whenever I go code, I turn my radio all the way up, because I recognize the fact that like in a high stress situation, my hearing, it goes a little. Mm-hmm. So I'm listening, but we're not ever really getting a good description of the person. Like they're like blackmail maybe with a mask. And I'm like, okay, but that's everybody. Yep. Everybody's wearing a mask, especially on campus. Like, and I just remember driving, but it felt like I was going like 14 miles per hour. Oh, yeah. And I remember like before I got there, I took my rifle out and I had it on my lap, and I'm driving and I'm like, well, because that's like an extra 3 seconds I can't waste. Like,
right.
And I remember getting to traffic, and it's like right where Michigan splits to Grand River. So it's like that weird fork in the road, and then it's Grand River, and then the Union is there, and Berkey's just on the other side. And I remember all the cars are stopped because I think it was a red light, and I just like drove over the sidewalk. Like onto the grass, over it, and I was like, because I know where I'm going. I don't know if anybody else does. Like, right. I'm going to get there.
In my opinion, right? The most stressful thing that an officer can deal with is not knowing where to go.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, imagine there's the biggest, there's the boogeyman. Everybody's calling in. The boogeyman is out here, but you don't know how to get there. Everybody, if you're brand new or if you're a seasoned vet, right? If you don't know where you're going, that is unbelievable stress. It is unbelievable stress. And I just remember the call you described, because we were in the same situation prior where you got spit on, and then we're at the jail writing it up.
Yeah. And
thank God she didn't take a time out and I'm going to go to the precinct and take a shower or go to the hospital and get, disinfected basically, because a lot of us would, and they wouldn't be wrong.
Right.
Right. We don't know what this person's got. How can a freaking goober on her? Come on, man. So here's the thing. They're screaming on the radio at this point. The shooters at Berkey, the shooters in the Union, the shooters in the Union.
My God.
Bro, I didn't know. I would still be looking for the Union today.
Yeah.
3 years later or whatever it is. I didn't have a clue. But I saw in front of me a patrol car. If her fucking car had wings, it'd been flying, bro. Yeah. I'm so unbelievably grateful. And I don't look, man, when it comes to religion and all that, I have more questions than I have answers to. I'm not the most religious person out there, but I really feel like she was leading the charge on purpose that night.
Yeah.
And I saw in the distance a car that was going over curbs and I didn't have a clue where we were going, but I was like, there is somebody that does. Mm-hmm.
Dude, I gotta
suck me into this wake because take me to the promised land.
I gotta believe that's what the first dog in those mush Alaskan Malamutes. I bet you they find that dog, and all the rest are like, "Fuck it, let's go."
Yeah, man. That's exactly. Listen, that is exactly what it was like. She's lead dog in this in bro.
But what's the goal, Rob? What's the goal, Katie? Right? What are we trained to? Find the shooter and stop them. Stop. Before it wasn't that way, right? Yep. It's set up a perimeter. Let's do this thing, whatever. Now it's address the threat, get there, and you were getting there the fastest way because obviously you know the campus. So what happened as soon as you got over the sidewalk?
So I thought I heard on the radio that he was in the cafeteria of the Union. And so I stopped by the back, it's like the loading dock kitchen door. I knew that up the stairs, you go there and you can get into the back of the kitchen just from like working there. I knew that. So I went up to that door, but at the same time, there's another door where he could have come out. And there's probably kids that are going to come out there, but that door is locked. So I held there. You guys were able to get inside the other doors that are locked from the outside. And I mean, we went in and I knew where I was going from the basement level because I've studied there. I worked there. But like in that moment, I watched my body camera back and I said, this way, we need to go up the stairs. We need to go up the stairs. And I think somebody asked me, how do you know? And I said, I went to school here.
That was me.
Yep.
That was
My
me.
response is, I went to school here.
That was me.
Despite wearing a full police uniform, carrying a rifle into a building, my response was, I went to school here. So to me, it was like, I was able to still do my job duties, but I like resorted back to like, this is
what
home.
you can visualize.
This is home.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
can picture it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from there, I mean, we cleared the rest of the building and I feel like everybody kind of split up and went, it's a big building, bunch of floors, a lot of space to cover, but we cleared it and
You
I don't know.
you guys had to go past the casualty, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the hardest thing, right? You're pushing. You don't want another casualty, and then you've got to literally triage, and do what we're trained to do. Yeah, that's terrifying. You know, absolutely terrifying.
Walking up, well, not like running up to the building, there were students coming up to me and they're like, he's inside. Like, so I thought 100% he's still inside. Like, I've got kids coming up to me saying that he's still inside of the Union. So I was like, there's no time. Like, we couldn't hear gunshots, but like, who's to say that that won't change in the next whatever. But yeah, I mean, we cleared it and like I just feel like the aftermath of it too, like seeing everybody's stuff everywhere, their cell phones, there were shoes and like books. And just everything was open and like there was music playing, like music that you have like in a cafeteria, like background music, and that never stopped. But it was like dead silent except for this music, and then the phones, like people's phones kept ringing, and I'm like, oh, God.
Snapshot right into that that moment where those people's lives were turned upside down. And then listen, I will never ever not ever say shout out. I don't even know what the person's name is. The caller that found the shooter based on a description that included red shoes.
Yeah.
You know, because I remember that the radio traffic was absolutely insane because a lot of the students didn't know that the soft clothes officers were officers.
Yeah.
So you're getting these constant calls, these updated calls.
Three white males with rifles, and I'm like, oh, they're cops.
They're cops. Please, they're cops. But they don't know.
Half a campus
They don't know.
away. You know what I mean?
They don't
So
know.
I'd rather they call than not call. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, the way that thing unfolded was wild. But every agency it seemed like in the state showed up there, and that to me this is another reminder. You know, people can be critical. They can say whatever they want about this profession. That's their right to do it. But when the shit hits the fan, I don't need anybody to say anything because I know that I'm in the right place doing the right thing. You know, you talk about go back before you even made the decision to come into law enforcement. You just wanted to do something that helped people. And there you are going in this building, claiming this as your home, literally saying it. I went to school here. We got to get this done. That's really remarkable.
Take us from there. What, like, finish the conversation with what you were talking about with, so we're in there. I went to school here. It's all said and done. It turns out he's not in this building. Then what? So,
they found him. We were there from, I think, 8:30, maybe like 8:34. I think it went out at like 8:29. So we were there fast.
We were there so fast.
And we were there
because of you.
Well, thank you, but
we were there. Listen, if it wasn't for you, I would still be looking for the freaking Union building. Okay, so
5 minutes passed, and then you guys got there. How long did it take you to clear the hall?
Well, we were there. I mean, we cleared it in probably maybe an hour. It's hard to tell because I feel like time was just not time. Like, it was like warped. Seriously
you're
warped.
right. Yeah.
But we didn't end up leaving campus until probably 2:00 in the morning, 2:30. And then we had to go finish our in custody report for the lady that spit in my face.
Yeah.
Literally
that's
coming
one
back.
day. That's one day of law enforcement.
Yep.
One day of law enforcement.
Which has a lot of the same flavor in a different way, but in a lot of ways it's different, but a lot of ways it's the same. For me talking about the person that set himself on fire and everything. Well, all right, well, we got work to do over here. It's very much the same in that we abandoned what we were doing in that moment from you getting spit on, and that person is in the jail and we're doing the report and everything. We abandoned that to go to MSU. But that doesn't mean that we can now just forget about our responsibilities over here. We still have to go back and finish this. This person is still in jail. We have to account for that.
Yeah. And then not to mention what's going to happen after.
Yeah.
Right? How many times have we been leaving the jail and the emergency tone goes out, and now you got to reset, run down to your car, and try to be useful.
Yeah.
Reset. So
6 years total is what you have here? Mm-hmm. And you're currently on the violent crime team? Mm-hmm. What do you hope to get out of that experience?
I mean, I've learned, I have a lot to learn, and I have a lot to figure out, and I have to figure out, my style, and I feel like I just need to sort of be a sponge in any capacity just to kind of like really get down search warrants and really get down, like figure out what my thing is. Because I'm trying to like take all the things and like take a little, like a spoonful of each until I figure it out. But I mean, if anything, just like really building cases.
Yeah.
And like seeing it all the way through, because I think that I'm a good report writer. I feel like I'm very thorough. And to me, the point of doing this job is not to have a temporary Band-Aid. It's to put the people that belong in places where they need to go.
Right.
They need to stay there and be
sometimes that's a steel cage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. And I think that in learning how to do a very thorough investigation and having, like all of your ducks in a row, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, if I could offer you any advice on your journey when you're talking to, if it's the feds, if it's the detective bureau or whatever, people that have more experience than you, just be like you're saying, just be a sponge and listen to what they're saying. Because if you go in there thinking that your technique is better than theirs, it may slow the process down. You got to be humble, and you gotta respect those that have kind of paved the way, and then walk around those that ain't got the energy that matches yours. If you've got people that you work with and they're not as motivated or excited to be on a specialized unit, don't play to that effort either. You know what I mean? It's gonna be the best time of your life. I mean, that's a fantastic concept. I love that we've had it. I don't know how long that the PD's had that violent crime initiative. I think it was the most important thing that's ever happened, in the last 10, 15 years, because it just allows more effort into the violent stuff that happens in the city. And you're going to walk away and come back to the road and you're going to miss it.
You're going to miss it, but here's the good news. You're going to come back to the road with your specialized experience dealing with nothing but violent crime. You're going to come out of there so wickedly sharp. You can't see it yet, right? And you won't see it until you get back to the road a few years from now. But when you get back there, there is nothing more satisfying than coming to a scene and having it be a violent incident. And now you're on the front end of that, and all the levers to pull, and you're just pulling them, baby.
Yeah.
Like you're like, give me that phone, give me that this and that, and you're just making music, and it feels so right.
Yeah, for sure.
It feels so good.
Right.
Unbelievable. It makes all the work of being a sponge. It's going to pay off. It's going to pay off before you get to the road, but before you complete your 3-year assignment. It's gonna pay off in those 3 years that you're there. But when you get out of there and back to the street is where you're really going to notice it.
If you don't appreciate like being proactive as a police officer, I think you miss a lot. You know, I think you have to learn how to be a good service police officer, right? Handle your calls, care about people, never lose your empathy. But when you can create not, you know, your own situation by being patient, by observing, by knowing what to say in your police reports, by doing just hard, honest police work, and you do end up getting a stop on someone who maybe was on his way to commit a shooting, or someone that's already committed a shooting, what was been hard to find, and you're using all types of avenues of information. There's something so satisfying about that. You know, it's just you sit in lineup a different way. You sit in lineup with this idea that, you know, I'm not just this person that was hired to do a job. I'm somebody that comes to work every day looking how to improve. And I really feel that's what you do. And I think it's exceptionally difficult because this is a man's type of job. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think I know that men are critical of women in law enforcement all the time, you know, and to come into this job with confidence and always trying to learn and keeping yourself strong mentally and physically as a woman is amazing, because I've seen women in law enforcement get challenged more than they should, you know, and it's not fair. I think we've improved. I think we've come a long way. But, you know, obviously you being a woman in law enforcement, don't lose the energy, don't lose the technique, don't lose what you're trying to do, the way you're doing it, because you'll have a great career.
Thank God you were there at the shooting of MSU, because if you weren't drawing on all your experience from going to school there and working there and everything else, you take you out of the equation, we don't have the vortex of you paving the way for us on that night when we needed it the absolute most, because we might as well be going to Mars that night. I had no clue where we were going. And that's a shitty feeling to have.
Right.
I could care less if you're in your words, I'm 5'3", right? It mattered to me not. It had zero impact on, well, we're following Katie, but she's only 5'3".
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I didn't give a flying rip.
Yeah.
I didn't matter. Right? Now, are there times in this job where physical strength is an advantage? Bet your ass it is.
Yeah. Right.
Right? But that doesn't mean that her perspective or the perspective from women in general is irrelevant, because you bring a tremendous amount to the table. Let's not forget, we're a damn team.
Right.
We're a team, and your strengths are not going to be necessarily my strengths, and Katie Booth's strengths are not necessarily going to be my strengths. But guess what? Your strengths in your arena or in her arena are going to be different than mine, and we can bring A, B, and C together. We're going to win this thing.
Right.
That's the key.
Yeah.
I don't need you to go in the bar and throw people around the bar. We got people for that.
Yeah.
We got people for that.
Yeah.
Right? But in the same breath, I love your perspective. Do I have my strengths? Yes. Are they different than yours? In some areas, yes. But guess what? In other areas, your strengths are better than mine, which if we can bring peanut butter and jelly together, we're going to win this thing.
Yeah.
Right? That's the beauty of it.
I think negotiating is wildly. I would tell anybody who's interested in getting in something specialized to try to get on that negotiating team, and for obvious reasons. The training's phenomenal. You learn a different way of communicating. You just got techniques that you wouldn't typically have just working the road and not having that training. Is there anything else that interests you? Like, do you want to do anything else at LPD? You know, once you get through VCI, do you have any interest in? Do you FTO? I thought you FTO.
Yeah, I do. That
Okay,
too, yeah.
so you're a field training officer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Forgot.
So then, there's, was the dive team any interest in the dive team?
No.
No?
I don't like open water.
Okay.
Like in my mind, there's sharks in swimming pools, so that's just not meant for me.
Do you want to, I mean, down the road, do you want to promote?
Maybe. I think eventually, yeah. Like I think long term I see myself promoting, but I also like I'm sponging
Yep.
of like all the command officers that I've had and the ones that I feel like look out for the people and like support their people and are there, and like I don't want to promote until I'm in a good space to do so. And that's, I mean, testing independent, interviewing independent, but I mean like actually inside. I don't want to ever do something half-ass.
Yeah.
So I know that I'm not there. I know that I don't have the experience to be there yet, but like eventually, yeah. But I just, if I'm doing something, I want it to be like full send.
Yeah.
So
Let's not forget, you just got married to a fantastic guy.
Okay.
Shout out
out.
to
Okay.
Adam
Two
Booth.
shout outs.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just a shout out to Adam Booth, your husband.
Yes.
Super, super happy that you guys found each other. We were a part of your wedding. It was one of the best weddings I've ever
we had
participated.
so much fun at her wedding. Come on, man.
Yeah. It was,
Come on, bro.
It was a really, really sweet
It was so good.
event. And where I'm going with this is we forget too, right? I mean, we have our personal lives, right? So women in law enforcement have babies, right? And then they have babies and they come back. As a man, I'll never know what that's like. I know what it means to be 1,000% dedicated to my children, but I don't know what it's like to be a woman that leaves work, you know what I mean, and then comes back after having a child. You know what I mean? So this dynamic that's just so impressive for those that choose to get in law enforcement that happen to be women.
yeah.
So
That's definitely something that I've battled with, like the thought of like, I did just get married and originally I was like, oh, maybe we should try right away, but it's like I'm in a new spot now and I want to see that through, but I also, it's a battle because I understand that I'm going to have to, work is going to have to take a back seat for my family. And like
Right.
at the end of the day, like my family is the most important, but at the same time, it's like, now what are the guys gonna think?
Yeah.
Like, am I extra soft now or what? But like,
right.
a lot of the people that we work with are starting families. So I think that maybe that's in my head, and I think that I do that a lot. I overthink a lot of things, and I put a lot of stress on myself when a lot of people might not bat an eye about it.
Right. Yeah.
Like, oh, Katie's having a baby, cool. But
Right.
to me, it's like, oh my God, everybody said that they're gonna think this and this and this. But like, it is what it is. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, but.
The one thing you will experience, that I know that I experienced and I know that Rob experienced, so once you do have a child, your vigilance as a police officer goes into hyper mode, right? Like, that you have to go to work, and the mantra that we have at most police departments is everybody goes home, or something to that effect. When you have a child of your own and bring that child, and then how often are we seeing all these terrible things happen to children? There's this thing that happens to you as a parent that I think's unique to law enforcement people, where it's like, no, I will do everything possible to not put myself in a situation where I don't come home. So I think that's a shared thing between men and women in law enforcement, but I lean into the fact that I think it's probably harder and more difficult for women, obviously, just because, they do a little bit more in that process than the man does.
Yeah.
The men do. So yeah, that's commendable. And I think the women in law enforcement make the biggest sacrifice. You want to have a satisfying career, and you want to explore and do everything that you could possibly do. But at the same time, if there's an interest in having children,
Yeah.
all of a sudden now you're trying to figure out how that works.
Yeah. And I don't want to be like, there's this weird thing, and I don't know if other women necessarily like resonate with it, but like, I feel like on light duty, I'm like a bump on a log. Like, what am I helping? What purpose am I serving? How is this beneficial to anybody? Everybody's like yapping about me behind my back. But like, one thing that I've realized is like, we are the first to eat each other alive. Like within the department, like you do something and we are the first ones. And I don't know where that comes from, but like, I think my fear is just of like, am I contributing what I would have been otherwise? But at the same time, I have to recognize this is like, I'm creating a family.
Exactly.
Like I didn't come out with like a top hat and a badge on.
Right.
I didn't enter this world as a little cop baby.
Right.
Like, I was a person before that. I'm
Right.
still a person now. It's just my occupation. But I think it spills over a lot into our personal lives. So it's kind of hard to, like, draw the line.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
great
That's
point.
the one thing when I look back at my career that I was never a fan of was how critical we can be of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, I think that happens quite often when women in law enforcement decide to have children and everyone else wants to act like that's a giant inconvenience rather than a great moment in that person's life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know,
You bet.
somebody will cover that call.
Yeah.
Somebody will show up. Someone will take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. Go let Katie and Adam go have their babies.
I love it. I think that we would be crazy not to at least mention, right? Here we are talking, you know, MSU was February 13th, 2023. So, you know, here we are, December, we're almost 2 years out in that ballpark. Here we are today, Madison, Wisconsin, at the Abundant Life Christian School. Had a school shooting today, just prior to this podcast, man. And those cops rushed in there.
Yeah,
with
sounds like
no
they got
questions
it done.
asked.
Yeah, sounds like they got it done.
They got it done. I look, there's a lot of details because it's just today, and I don't want to speculate with casualties or what happened. Like, but it's important to recognize that. Look, law enforcement as a career, we've been up and down and north and south and inside out and everything in between. But one thing remains the same is that you can count on us. And when your kids are in trouble, we are coming for days. Yep. And I don't care if it's MSU or Madison, Wisconsin.
Well, all of us are coming, right?
All of us are coming. Like
white cops, black cops, female cops,
everything we got.
Anybody that's willing to do the job,
everything
put that uniform
got.
On, here we come.
Everything we got.
Yep.
And guess what? And this is heavy on my heart. And I don't know about anybody else in this room. I'm only speaking for myself. But heavy on my heart is I've got amnesia about you spitting on my partner a couple years ago. I've got amnesia on your protesting about something else that somebody else did in Minneapolis where they were very right to be pissed in that incident. But I had nothing to do with that. I've tried to do this job the best that I can for my whole 25 years until I retired.
Right.
MSU a couple years ago to Madison, Wisconsin today, you can count on us.
Right.
Here's the next thing that I want to say as we wrap up here. But before I kick it in your corner, as a wrap up, I want to say this. Shout out to Chief Backus for giving the green light for current Lansing police employees to come in on this podcast. It says a lot about the trust bank account, so to speak, with us. That we're not going to come in here. The goal is to not come in here making anybody look foolish. We're going to give our honest response and an honest perspective, but we're not looking to be out of bounds on anything, right?
Right.
I think that's important to say. And on the heels of that is this, what I say to you, Katie, wrapping up. What would you say to the brand new officer? Maybe they're either in the academy or they're out of the academy and they're doing this job, but they're inexperienced. What would you say to someone that's just getting started in this job? What would your advice be to them?
Honestly, I think don't take it personally. And I think that goes to a lot of different points, but like people are going to be mad at you. Citizens are going to be mad at you because they're having a bad day. Don't take that personally. They're going to say horrible things to you. Don't take that personally. They're going to be senior officers that correct what you're doing. Don't take it personally. They're trying to help you. Nothing is personal in this job. You have to kind of remove yourself as a person. Just don't take it personally. And it's a lot easier said than done because I take everything personally.
Sure.
But I think that would be the best advice, you know? we're not going to people's birthday parties. We're not going to like celebrations. We're going to the worst day in somebody's life, and they don't know you and you don't know them, and what they say to you is a consequence of what their day has been so far, or what their month or their year or their lifetime.
Whole lifetime.
What brought us
Exactly.
to this point.
Exactly.
Yes. So don't take it personally for the 5 minutes of interaction that you have with them.
I can almost guarantee you, Katie, that most of the mistakes made in law enforcement is when one of us took it personal. Great advice.
Great
Thank you.
advice.
Thank you for
100%.
coming on the show.
Thank you for coming in here.
Thanks for having
It
me.
takes incredible courage. Thank you. And thank you for leading the charge at MSU. Thank you for coming in here tonight. My man,
All right.
as always,
Yep.
I love you.
All right, man.
Thank you. Peace.